Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another brand new series on the channel. We are playing Assassin's Creed 3. Now, this is the remastered edition, and it does include Assassin's Creed Liberation, which was originally a standalone game for the PS Vita, so I'm going to play that through as well. A couple of things I want to get through before we start the game. Number one, I am playing these games in their original production order. However, if I was to play them to the timeline, you would play, if you wanted to play them strictly so that it made linear sense, like in the order that the events happened, instead of playing Assassin's Creed 3, you would play Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, Assassin's Creed Rogue, then Assassin's Creed 3. And the reason for that is that what happened when Ubisoft made 3, they introduced the assassin Connor Kenway, and then in Assassin's Creed 4 they introduced Connor's grandfather, Edward Kenway, and another character that's key to the events of those 3 games is a character named Haytham Kenway, who is the assassin Connor Kenway's dad. So you'll meet all these characters in the game, but the timeline starts to get a bit convoluted here, because instead of continuing forward from Assassin's Creed 3, they jumped back and then jumped way forward. So here we start in about the middle of the 18th century, during a time when the American colonies were still very much under the authoritarian rule of the British government.
People talked about the end of the world.
And I'm just going to press start on this so that cutscene doesn't start again. So at a point where they're still very much under the authoritarian rule of the British government. The American Revolution hasn't started at the beginning of this game. Those events take place during the game, so further into it. So we're not at 17. Am I right in saying that it was 1776? The Americans won they eventually won the war of independence. So it's not 1776 that we start in. We start about 20 years before that, I think. So we start there in the middle of the 18th century, and then we go further back in Assassin's Creed 4 to the golden age of piracy, to Blackbeard and Tortuga, the pirate haven and all that kind of stuff. And then for Assassin's Creed Unity, which is the next game in the series, it would have been Assassin's Creed 5, but Ubisoft stopped numbering the series after Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. So in Assassin's Creed Unity, we jump forward to the end of the 18th century. So we start in the middle of the 18th century, we go back, and then we jump way forward, and then it continues to the 19th century, and then it goes way back to the ancient. I say ancient Egypt, but it's not really ancient. Egypt's already ancient by the point we start. I'll explain more as we get to the different games, but I just wanted to get that so that you guys could kind of realise how the production of the games and what the timeline was, how that was affected. So we're going to play Assassin's Creed 3, obviously single player. That is a game that I had started a while ago. I'm just going to delete that, and we will start a new game just as Raptor.
Used to be when people talked about the end of the world, we locked them up or laughed them off. Sometimes both. But we never took them seriously. Maybe we should have. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Better to start at the beginning, with the abduction of Desmond Miles, my son. This boy had no ambition, no direction, no plans for the future. What he did have was a heritage, one he chose to deny. It nearly cost him his life. He was captured and imprisoned. Those who took him believed he could help them find something. The apple. One of several artifacts we call pieces of Eden. Bits of ancient technology scattered across the globe. Some hidden, some found, all of them dangerous. Most are held by a single group, the same group that now had Desmond. You know them as Abstergo Industries. We know them as the Templars, as the enemy. We've been fighting them for thousands of years. Even longer if you believe the stories of their origins. I do. After all, I've seen the truth. That's the beauty and the horror of the Animus. A device that allows us to enter and experience the lives of our ancestors. It holds the power to change everything, to show us history the way it really happened. Up until its creation, to the victor went the spoils, went the truth. We're trying to fix that, to free minds and bodies both. But there's only so much that we can do, and the Templars have the upper hand these days. But something larger than the Assassins and Templars is approaching, bigger than all of us. And if we can't find a way to stop it, these next few weeks will probably be our last. Everyone's last. In the end, it all comes down to him. To Desmond. Through the Animus, he discovered his heritage, explored the lives of his ancestors, and uncovered their secrets. When that was done, he trained. He used another ancestor to provide decades of experience in the span of a few days. It worked. We think. We hope. Soon, though, soon we'll know. That ominous date fast approaches, December 21st, 2012. None of us knows what it'll bring, only that this is where they want us to be, when it does. They've been guiding us in their own fractured, frustrating way. These voices from the first civilization, the ones who came before, a precursor race of immense power and uncertain motives. They're the ones who made the pieces of Eden. This is where they've led him, and through him, us. He stands at the entrance to this long-lost place, armed with the knowledge of Altaïr and the abilities of Ezio. He holds in his hands the apple of Eden, and we stand at his side, ready to support him however we can. His name is Desmond Miles, and he has brought us to the end.
So here we are. This is, if you remember from the end of Revelations, Desmond actually woke up in the back of the van, they opened the doors, and you saw through the forests the entrance to the cave. This is us arriving.
We're here. Let's go.
I don't want to talk over dialogue, so I'm going to avoid talking during cutscenes as much as I can, but during gameplay I will offer some insight. So, the first thing to realise about this game is the setting's going to be totally different to what we've played before. In Assassin's Creed, Assassin's Creed 2, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and Assassin's Creed Revelations, it's very much urban settings. We're in cities in the past, in an urban environment, moving through rooftops and taking out our targets in that area. Assassin's Creed 3 features a forested environment. Now, you do have towns and cities in the colonies. Boston is one of the maps where we'll spend the most time, but there's also New York. But you will spend a lot of time in the wooded, forested areas of the game. So it introduced new gameplay mechanics that we'll talk about specifically when we get there. The game was built on the Anvil Next engine, which was an engine that Ubisoft made specifically for this game. So when Assassin's Creed 3 began development, it began development immediately after the release of Assassin's Creed 2. And 2.5 years later, it was released. So Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and Assassin's Creed Revelations were built on different engines. I think they used engines that were made for different Ubisoft games at the time just to get those games out. But when Assassin's Creed Brotherhood was released, a lot of people were confused, thinking that, is this Assassin's Creed 3 in quotation marks? And Ubisoft had to quickly come out and say, no, there is an Assassin's Creed 3 in development. And then they further clarified by saying that each numbered Assassin's Creed entry would introduce a new protagonist. So you wouldn't play as an existing character. So it was supposed to give you the idea that Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, you played as Ezio. And so unless the game came out and it was specifically called Assassin's Creed 3, you would not be playing as a brand new assassin. The Ezio trilogy came to an end with Revelations. This came out and gave you the brand new protagonist. You can see the difference in the character model. Desmond's model is always a reskin of the main assassin. So the way that they have our assassin in this game, Connor, he holds himself like that so that his hands are weapons ready and he's ready to run and sprint everywhere. Unfortunately, Desmond does this as well. It is what it is. This is the cave that we're looking for. You can see Desmond's got the glow stick at his side, giving off light to guide them in. This is what they've been guiding him towards through Altaïr and Ezio, the first civilization people who have spoken to them. Juno and Minerva. This is where they've brought him. To a graffitied cave in New England.
In another moment, down went Alice after it, never once considering how in the world she was to get out again.
Again, we've got some really cool lighting effects there. And here we are in the remains of a first civilization lab/archive. This is what the guy that was talking to Desmond at the end of Revelations, this is what he was guiding them towards, was this place where all their knowledge was deposited.
I think we're here.
And here's the slidey bit that I told you about. There's a lot of slidey bits. I've lost that's quite a neat touch. I've lost the light and the slide. So that interaction between Desmond's character model and the ground, that's quite well done. I had to clear my throat there. So, you can see the architecture is reminiscent of a lot of the chambers that we explored as Ezio. Lots of square columns, geometric shapes. There you can see, again, we've seen similar light designs and patterns in Assassin's Creed 2.
key. You must find the key.
Son? Sir?
Here we go again.
Down he goes.
Do you hear us?
Yeah. What happened?
The temple triggered a bleeding effect. You collapsed and entered into a fugue state.
So naturally, you dropped me into the Animus instead of, I don't know, making sure I was okay?
You weren't in any danger. Besides, the temple appeared to be communicating with you, and I didn't want to risk severing the connection. At least not until we knew what it wanted.
Right. Of course.
Son,
No, it's fine. I get it. And I know what I'm looking for, by the way. It's a key. Just no idea where it is, though. I guess that's why she triggered the bleeding effect.
She?
Juno, Dad. She's talking to me.
Desmond's hairstyle changed there.
While you were, visiting Constantinople, we picked up a software update for the Animus. I'd like to run a couple of quick tests, make sure there aren't any major issues.
All right. What do you need me to do?
We'll start simple. Walk to the marker over there.
So this is just introducing you to the fact that the game engine's changed, so the gameplay mechanics might have changed, and the way they deal with the engine upgrades in the game is to have you play through an Animus update. You can see the difference in the climbing animation, the running animation.
Okay, Desmond, let's practice climbing on these objects.
You don't need to push X anymore to climb. You just hold R2 and Desmond will climb up. So it used to be that you had to push X to initiate the climb. Now you don't. Instead, an X button, if you push the cross button, or the X button as I call it, and I always will, if you push the X button, you'll jump off.
Run your way through this little obstacle course.
And free running is now supposed to be as simple as holding R2 and pushing in a direction. However, some of the texture interactions are still quite iffy in Assassin's Creed 3, and you'll see that as I go through.
These are optional objectives that raise your synchronization rate. All right, Desmond, follow the on-screen instructions and kill the 2 Templars.
Air assassination.
All you have to do here is jump the gap.
Jump the gap. Here we go. See how this is taking on kind of a house texture. You see it? You'll see a lot more of that. This was also the first game that allowed you to enter buildings. You see how it's resolving itself into architecture as you're moving through it to show Desmond's sync updating with it. This is also the first Assassin's Creed that let you enter buildings. We'll get excited about that shortly.
Synchronization levels look good now. We should be able to build the world. Time to find out what the temple wants from you.
So here we have 18th century fashion. Meet Connor Kenway. I've heard him best described as a gentleman bastard, and I'd have to agree with that. He is one of my favourite characters in the Assassin's Creed series, purely because he is...
Sir? Everything all right, sir?
He is,
Yes,
as described.
I'm just preoccupied, that's all.
Don't forget your invitation. Master Birch will be meeting you inside.
Thank you.
Where shall I retrieve you once you're done?
Front of the Opera House. And be quick about it. Don't expect to be here long.
I'll bring her round at once.
Perfect. Haytham is wearing one blade only, so the assassins have done away with the dual hidden blades.
Invitation, please. Shall I take your coat, sir?
You'll see those prompts come up a lot about new email received.
You are requested to kindly find your seats.
This is the Theatre Royal in London. We don't spend a lot of time in London until Assassin's Creed Syndicate, which is about 3 or 4 games away.
Please.
Again, in the darkness, I'm struggling to see. I should have checked the brightness before I started. HUD. Nope. General, perhaps. Brightness. I'm going to put it up to 7, because 7 was eventually good enough for. Yes, that's much better.
My apologies.
I can see where I'm going now. And the brightness should be resolved for you guys in post-editing.
Evening, Haytham.
Reginald?
I can't tell you how happy I was to hear they'd mounted this revival. Gay's best work by far. Have you seen it before?
Once. My father brought me here as a child. Though I remember little of it. I don't suppose tonight will afford me the luxury of a proper viewing either.
No, I'm afraid it won't. On to business then. Do you see him?
And the statesman, because he's so great, thinks his trade as honest as mine.
He's seated in one of the boxes above.
The stairs are watched. You'll need to find another way up.
So is mine. Like me too.
I already have.
Double capacity, both against roads and for them. For 'tis but fitting that we should protect and encourage cheats, since we live by 'em.
Reginald Birch, I'll give you the insight. London merchant, son of another London merchant. Started business for himself at an early age. By the time he was in his mid-20s, owned several merchant ships dealing with the tea trade to the American colonies. Birch met Haytham Kenway while working for his father Edward Kenway. They were introduced at White's, which is a gentleman's club, while Haytham was still quite young. Birch took over Haytham's education and worked together as members of the Assassin's Order. You can see that they've broken down the locations and the Animus database entries. I'll try not to bore you with too many of them. I'll give you the brief overview as I go through them, but it is kind of important to get to know the players, the characters in the game, the protagonists and antagonists, so we will try and keep it to a minimum.
I told him what would come to if he did not mend his hand. This is death without reprieve. I may mention a book. For Tom Gag, £40. Let Betty Sly know I'll save her from the transportation, so I can get more by her staying in.
Ooh, that's what people were brought here for. Back in the day.
And in truth, 'tis a pity to lose so good a customer. If none of the gang take her off, she may, in the common course of business, live at 12 months longer. I love to let women skate. A good sportsman always lets the end of partridges fly, was the free the game.
I believe this is a comedy that's on. It does tell you what the play is at one point. I'll quickly go into the entry. This is more my jam, 18th century and sort of the Age of Enlightenment. a very rudimentary lock-picking system. It's not like Skyrim or Oblivion or anything like that, where you get a diagram of the tumblers and you have to mess around with the picks.
I've got a bit of stage fright.
A little Dutch courage over the bloom in your cheek.
The Beggar's Opera, there we go. Oh, pushed the wrong button there. Let me just double check. Yeah, thought I'd stopped the recording there for a horrible, horrible second. That is annoying me. Where is my Animus database? There we go. Recent entries, the Beggar's Opera. Opened in 1728, it's a musical, one of the earliest ever created, written by John Gay, a writer and friend of Alexander Pope and Jonathan Swift. Those names might not mean anything to a lot of you guys, but to anyone who has done any English literature or studied any of the history courses that are offered in the UK, Pope and Swift are two literary figures. They're authors, but they're also diarists. The opera was popular and controversial. Popular because it was an excellent skewering of Italian opera, which was popular at the time. Instead of complicated Italian songs, the Beggar's Opera featured folk tunes that the audience could recognise. It was controversial because of the subject matter. It's set in the Newgate prison, and the main characters are all criminals who act much like the upper classes. So it was a send-up of the British nobility, including veiled criticism of the head of government. At this point in the 1700s, when we're with Connor Kenway, this would be King George III, I'm sure. Might be George II, actually. The Beggar's Opera was accused of being a base form of entertainment, and because its main characters were criminals, accused of causing an increase in crime. Sorry, not time. Satire, that as a form of comedy, was very popular during the 18th century. There are a lot of popular comics and illustrations from the time, plus writing the literature, diaries, essays, etc., that poke fun at various important institutions. The idea now being that nothing was immune from criticism.
Haytham. You should have come to me. We would have found another way. Yes. But then you would have known. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. As am I.
I vaguely remember that looking totally different back in the day. I think there's been a little bit of editing there to make it look less brutal, because there was, I think we saw Haytham ready the blade before. But I think part of the problem with that is it didn't look like a proper assassin's hidden blade. It looked like a sort of stumpy diamond tip razor type thing. So I don't know if that was why it was cut.
A man was killed in the other balcony. I searched. Any weapons?
I beg your pardon.
Did they find you?
Patience, please. That's an opera.
Peace, friends. There is no danger.
Please, friends, there is no danger. A man has died. I'm sorry we're not getting a good tour of the Theatre Royal, but I believe it does still stand. If you want a good look at it, I'll endorse tourism in the UK. Visit London and see the actual Theatre Royal and take in a performance while you're there. I doubt it looks like this anymore. I need to get out, it's too close in here. I must get some air. Check out all the powdered wigs. The nobility.
And how was the opera?
Rather dull, truth be told.
You forgot your hat.
Shall we be off then?
Aye. To Fleet and Bride.
By your command.
Fascinating. Gentlemen, I hold in my hand a key. And if this book is to be believed, it will open the doors of a storehouse built by those who came before.
Ah, yes. Those who ruled, reigned, and vanished from the world. Do we know what it is that will be held within?
It could contain certain knowledge. Perhaps a weapon, or something as yet unknown, unfathomable in its construction and purpose. It could be any of these things, or none of them. They are still an enigma, these precursors. But of one thing I am certain. Whatever waits behind those doors shall prove a great boon to us all.
Or our enemies, should they find it first.
They won't. You've seen to that.
I assume you know where this storehouse is?
Ah, Mr. Harrison.
Gentlemen.
How fare your calculations?
I believe the site lies somewhere within this region.
That's a lot of ground to cover.
My apologies. Were that I could be more accurate.
That's all right. It suffices for a start. And that is why we've called you here, Master Kenway. We'd like for you to travel to America, locate the storehouse, and take possession of its contents.
I'm yours to command, although a job of this magnitude will require more than just myself.
Of course. Upon this paper are the names of 5 men sympathetic to our cause. Each is also uniquely suited to aid you in your endeavor. With them at your side, you will want for nothing.
Well, then I'd best be on my way.
I knew our faith in you was not misplaced. We've booked you passage to Boston. Your ship leaves at dawn. Go forth, Hatham, and bring honor to us all.
Sequence 1 finished. The beginning of this game serves as a heavy tutorial, so I apologise for that in advance. There is no way to skip it. Most of Hatham's missions are pretty much just, this is how you do this now, this is how you do this now, here's this new mechanic. It's still really good. And now we're on the open ocean and we're here in the shanties. Oh, the 18th century. Of course, the downside to ships on the ocean in the 18th century is slavery. And although we're not on a slave boat here, it should be noted that this period, this is one of the periods where this practice, abominable practice, is at its busiest. So we're on board the Providence, many ships in the British Merchant Navy. It was a trade ship. It's carrying cannons, but those are for protection against pirate or privateer vessels. If you don't know the difference, a privateer is basically a pirate with a letter of marque from the government that the pirate ship belongs to. So, for example, if you were a British merchant ship and you wanted to become a privateer, the British government would give you a letter of marque in the King's name, which would excuse you from the crime of piracy, provided you directed your pirate activities elsewhere. So instead of taking down other British ships and stealing their stuff, you would instead take down, at this time, probably French ships, although the Spanish were still trading across the Atlantic as well. So yeah, anybody that wasn't sailing under British covers, basically. And the captain is a part owner. So not every captain owned a ship. They usually belonged to shipping companies or to small consortiums of people like merchants who may have a partnership who own part of the boat as well. This was a common practice because ships were expensive to run and expensive to maintain and expensive to crew. So the idea was that if you were part owners, the cost could be spread around. Although this one seems to be a rather cruel individual and miserly, which is not a good combination. So if you've ever wanted to see a ship's hold, so we came from this direction, the Haytham's quarters are right at the back on his own, and so he's got privacy. We have the sort of general crew's quarters and ship stores, oven for cooking. This is sort of the cook's area. Live animals, that is not an unusual practice. This hold would be stinking, but at the same time there's fresh meat for the crew for the voyage. We can play games of dice, chance with these guys. Cargo hold and ammunition store by the looks of it, medicines, cartridges. It's basically the names, by the way, that you see on here. These are the destinations that we'll be dropping the various cargoes off at. New York, Hartford, Boston, Stamford, Waterbury. And there's the guy that was singing earlier. So, up onto the deck we go. There's no way up there. That hole that is sealed off, that part. So we'll just take a gentle jog up onto the deck. Here we go. The Atlantic Ocean, if you don't know what the Atlantic Ocean is, then I can't help you. Like, you're beyond help. It's the big bit of water on the map of the world that's between the Americas and Europe. Like, how much more? Like, if you don't know that by now, I'm really sorry. I'm not going to go over the obvious stuff with you. I'm sure you all know that the Atlantic Ocean is the big blue bit.
And then all will be well.
You sure about that?
Of course. Have I ever led you astray?
Nah. Though you don't stick right with the others.
Have faith, my friend. You'll see.
Well, well. Seems our esteemed guest has deigned to grace us with his presence. You might want to head back to your quarters. Top deck's no place for tender parnells.
So I thought.
And yet here you are.
Fancy yourself a joker, eh? Let's see how funny you find this.
That's enough, Graves.
Stay out of this.
Oh, here we go. So you'll see that counter and parry is on circle now. There we go.
Listen to this, Hector. Thinks he can swagger on up here and declare himself king of the castle.
Please, fellas, call this off. If the captain sees us...
To hell with the captain. And to hell with you, Mills. Whose side you on, anyway?
Mate, you're about to get your... So I'll get better counters now. There you go. Oh, DDT!
I'm ready to go again if you are.
This is unwise.
Why's that? You think I'm afraid of you?
No, but you should be.
Oh!
Do you yield?
You should technically be dead.
How do you like these odds?
So there's the disarm attacks are different.
What's the meaning of this?
And that's a crappy flint
Explain
blade.
yourself at once, Mr. Kenway.
He's thought we were simply passing the time with a bit of sport, Captain.
How about you pass the time by doing your goddamn jobs instead? I wasn't aware I was paying you to loll about. A word, please, Mr. Kenway.
Oh, I nearly forgot. There's your knife back.
See? Gentleman bastard. Told you.
I don't care for you, Mr. Kenway. I've had nothing but trouble since you came aboard.
Your problems have nothing to do with me.
I beg your pardon?
You're a poor leader, ill-tempered and cruel, and it's clear your crew has no respect for you.
Look, I don't want to argue. In fact, I need a favor.
Brilliant.
This is rich.
I suspect some of the men intend to mutiny.
Sorry, 2 seconds, guys. I'm going to turn the brightness back down because it's now starting to annoy me that it looks too bright. You can't win with me. I'm going to put it down to 6, and that should be enough for the room that I'm sitting in.
What a surprise.
As I cannot trust any of them, I am compelled to turn to you.
And why should I help you?
Because if they do intend to betray, I'm the only hope you have of reaching America alive. Well, what will it be?
If what you say is true, what other choice do I have?
Thank you.
But let me be clear. Should you ever dare to insult or threaten me again, I'll not hesitate but to cut off your head myself. Are we understood? Excellent. Good day.
Oh, I love him so much. He's such a great character. He's so well written. For 28 days into the voyage across the ocean. What a bastard you are, Kenway.
Mr. Kenway.
Captain?
Whatever they're up to, I believe it's coming to a head.
I'd best get to work.
Investigate the crew.
He's cut our rations again. Claims we're not provisioned for such luxuries.
It's not right that you should feast on lamb and wine, whilst we're stuck with tinned fish and biscuits.
Someone needs to have words with him.
Mills tried. Captain turned him away.
Then he must try again, with more force if need be.
Oh dear. So the crew's now thinking of mutinying.
Won't hardly take his hat off. Keeps his face hidden too, so we can't see him watch it.
Quiet! Here he comes. Make like you're working.
You there. I have some questions for you.
That's nice, but I ain't got time to gossip. Probably wouldn't have anything useful to share anyway. You want information? Try the cook or the doctor. Everyone's always chatting them up.
Alright. Rude, but fair enough. Sorry that. Quickly check. Yeah, 45 minutes, just as I thought. You know what? I'm actually going to call it. I'm actually going to call this episode here, and then pick up during this mission again for the second episode, because I know there's a couple of unskippable cutscenes coming up, and I don't want the episodes to accidentally run over. So this is the start of Assassin's Creed 3. This is the beginning of... I actually like this game. I do think it's one of the good ones in the series. I know it has its flaws, it does. There are a lot of bugs. There were a lot of bugs at the time of release. It got patched, it got fixed. This is the remastered version that was released for the PS4 when Ubisoft were remastering a lot of the titles for release on modern generation consoles. So a lot of the major problems have been ironed out, but there's still a few technical issues here and there. That being said, it is set in one of my favourite times of history. Now that we're out of the British stuff, I don't know as much about the American stuff, so I'll talk about it based on what the game is telling us. But if you guys have anything you want to add, any local knowledge, I know there are a few American viewers that regularly tune into my channel, so if you guys want to comment on the history or correct anything, or if you think something's wrong, feel free to dive into the comments and let me know. Subscribe to the channel, you guys. More of this is going to be coming. I enjoy playing the Assassin's Creed games. I had such a buzz playing the Ezio trilogy. I'm so happy to be playing 3 for you guys. It does get meatier, but it's a big build up at the start, which I think is one of the criticisms. So we will get into the meat of the action soon. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, leave a comment, and if you stick around for a couple of seconds, more videos will appear on screen, along with a link to a playlist and a subscription button for my channel. You can view more of my content there. And that being said, guys, you take care of yourselves, look after yourselves, and I'll see you for more Assassin's Creed 3 very soon. Take care and bye for now.